John in Brooklyn. What's up, John?
Yeah, this is not a complicated thing. The Yankee nonstop propaganda backed them into a corner. The only thing that makes any sense is if they make and win the World Series. Otherwise, they're a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mets don't have that burden.
I think they do now. You don't think they do now?
No, not nearly. Because they're still the Mets and not the Yankees. The 27 championships. Nowhere to go. For the Yankees now, everything is you either win the World Series or you're a failure, which is not nearly true. I'm a Mets fan, but the fact is they backed themselves into a corner by, all the pomp and circumstance that never stops. And the Yankees...
Well, how does it never stop? Because they're not... I mean, the Yankees aren't promoting that anymore. George did. When this owner doesn't... they talk about it's, World Series or a failure, I guess, but there's really no pomp and circumstance about the Yankees, winning World Series or busting.
They just lost their ace. They lost Stanton.
Yeah.
I don't know who else they lost. And people still talk about them like they're going to win the division. No problem.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, they still have a good team compared to some of the other teams in the division. Yeah, they lost their ace. Who's the best? McClanahan just went down for the Rays. Like who's got a bet? Maybe the Red Sox. Who's got a better rotation in the division?
Well, let's look at it the otother way. If the same exact thing happened to the Mets, would they be saying about the Mets, or would they be saying the Mets?
Technically, they have lost their ace for the first month of the season. We'll see. Mania, you could argue
they're going to win the division.
Oh, I think a lot of... Well, one, the division's tougher. That's the difference, though. The difference is the Yankees won the division last year. The Mets did not. The difference is the division is a hell of a lot easier than the Phillies and the Braves.
Mm.
If the Mets were in the Yankees, if the Mets were in the AL East, people would be predicting them to win the division. The Mets are in a tough division, but I disagree with you. I think you're getting there. Where, there's degrees of failure, and maybe the Met fan still has that ability to have a little bit of degrees, I suppose. Like if you lose a hard-fought 7-game series to the Dodgers, lose a 3-2 game 7 in LA of the NLCS, could you be that upset? It's starting to get to the point where it's World Series or bust. Nothing else is a success. I think there's just levels of failure. There's no more success. Last year was a success. Falling behind 11 games under 500, working their way back, having the best rotation in baseball the second half, the best team in baseball the second half, getting into the playoffs, beating the Braves in that first game of the doubleheader, hitting the miraculous home run to beat the Brewers, beating the Phillies and losing to the Dodgers in the NLCS was a success. There's only one way to succeed now for the New York Mets. Only one way. Win the World Series. Anything else is a failure. I still think the Mets and their fan base could be in a position to have degrees of failure where there are none with the Yankee fan. That's it. Failure. Embarrassing failure. Doesn't matter they made the World Series. Failure, stinking failure. Where the Mets can lose to the Dodgers and still feel like, hey, let's say they win the division, they win 103 games, they have this great run, right? They win the NLDS, going away, they beat the Padres, or they beat the Braves, or they beat the Phillies again, and then they get to the Dodgers, hard-fought series, all the way to Game 7, lose on a walk-off home run from Shohei Ohtani. You go, hey, we just gave the best team and the super team a run for their money. It took them late into the Game 7 to beat us. Maybe you could live with that kind of failure, where the Yankees won't. Yankees could take the Dodgers to Game 7 of the World Series, and Shohei Ohtani could hit a walk-off home run in the 9th inning to lose the game 2-1, and the Yankee fans will be failure. I can't wait to see what they do next year to fail again. Where the Met fan might be able to have degrees of failure. But there is no success anymore. There's only one way to succeed. There is no positive season. There is no good season. There is no successful season without winning the World Series. That goes for both teams now. But the Mets do have what even the Yankee fans should have, which is degrees of failure.